Number 9 here. What is the target share distribution in Washington going to be like without Jahan Dotson? This Washington offense with Dotson leaving now has 333 vacated targets, and 4 of their top 5 target earners from last season are gone. Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, Antonio Gibson. Not necessarily elite players, but at the same time, a lot of targets going out the window here. We know this is probably going to be a high-paced offense, at least that's what most are projecting it to be. Can Terry McLaurin push for 150 targets? Can Luke McCaffrey, Dyami Brown, Zach Ertz, Ben Sinnott get targets? There's going to be fantasy relevant players coming from this offense that we're going to be picking up off the waiver wire. I would say as early as week 2. It's just a matter of figuring out who's it going to be. I'm curious, maybe most of all, what happens to Brian Robinson's 2.9 targets per game last season. Does Austin Ekeler absorb most of that? Or can Brian Robinson still have some type of target share with a quarterback we're not really projecting to throw to the running back a whole lot in Jaden Daniels? We'll all find out, I think, in week 1, but I have a ton of question marks. And Eric, I know you really like this Kliff Kingsbury offense as well up there in Washington, but I just have no idea what the target share is going to be, especially with Jahan Dotson, former Penn State Nittany Lion, former first-round pick as well, out the door here to the division rival Eagles. What are we doing, Steelers? Bring him home. Bring him home.
Bring him home to the Lurs. Yeah, very, very legitimate question, right? In terms of how these actually play out. I think the clearest answer that we can say is we can expect a ton of Terry McLaurin work over the course of really this entire season. Maybe we see someone emerge down the stretch run a bit, but with Jahan Dotson heading out the door, it really opens up the door for Dyami Brown and for Luke McCaffrey to see more work. You look at the way they deployed them over the course of the preseason, and there wasn't really anything that was particularly telling, right, in terms of differentiating one from the other. Dyami Brown got a little bit more vertical work. We saw McCaffrey get a little bit more work in the short and intermediate area. So that maps a little bit more to McCaffrey kind of falling into the Curtis Samuel role and Dyami Brown falling into the Jahan Dotson role. But, all of these things are really, for me, just kind of pointing the arrow back at Terry McLaurin. He is one of my favorite values over the course of draft season. And I think that he is going to be peppered with targets in a fast-paced offense.
Yeah, I've never been a guy since his rookie season. I had a ton of Terry McLaurin coming out of Ohio State, a very underrated player, and I picked him up in a bunch of dynasty leagues that year, picked him up in a bunch of redraft, but really since then, I've kind of been out on him at cost. I think it's a great time to get in on Terry McLaurin at cost. So that is the one thing for certain. I do agree with you there. Steve, if you had to throw a dart throw at one of these other guys, whether it's Christian McCaffrey's little brother, whether it's Dyami Brown, who's been there for a while, old man Zach Ertz, Ben Sinnott out of K-State. Who's the one guy you're like, hey, I should probably have this guy maybe on my roster in week 1 heading to Tampa Bay?
It's actually none of them, and it's Austin Ekeler. I think Austin Ekeler is going to be the guy to benefit the most from this kind of shift away from Jahan Dotson. I think the offense with Kliff Kingsbury, there's two things his offense runs this way and this way only. It's either a touchdown or it's a check down, and that is how Kliff Kingsbury runs it. So remember, he had Kenyon Drake for a little while, and Kenyon Drake was a very viable fantasy running back. Brian Robinson
Chase Edmonds.
And so was Chase Edmonds. So Brian Robinson does not fit the mold of what Kliff Kingsbury likes to have in his running backs. He's a little bit of a thumper, which is fine.
He likes a thumper, though. James Conner.
He likes a thumper. It's a thunder and lightning kind of thing. But Austin Ekeler is going to be that third down guy, which is what Austin Ekeler should be. That's what he's excelled at in his career. We saw that, for a few seasons, he was a between the tackles kind of guy, but it started to wear him out. I think Ekeler has more tread on the tires than people want to admit. So I think this is a Terry McLaurin, Austin Ekeler passing offense. Ben Sinnott may wind up coming along as the season goes on, but it's tight end. It's a hard position to learn. It takes a while. There's a lot you have to do. I honestly don't think the number 2 wide receiver, might be a hot take for Commanders fans, isn't even on the team at the current moment. I don't believe their wide receiver 2 is on the team with the names that are going to get cut.
Who is it? Who's out there?
Well, you look at guys like Noah Brown, who just got cut.
Yeah. Honest to God. Yeah.
Like Terrence Marshall just got cut. You look at these guys, and there are probably a few more coming down the pipe that we're not going to expect to get cut. I was shocked Juju didn't wind up there.
Tim Patrick
available. There's guys available that we're just not seeing. I don't believe the wide receiver 2 for them is on the team.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, as a lot of people lose their jobs today, lose their homes, which obviously sucks. We're wishing the best for everyone out there. It does create more opportunity around the league as well.